O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Maui Nui is on a mission to help balance axis deer populations for the good of our environment, communities, and food systems. On the island of Maui, they've shared over 126,000 pounds of nutrient-dense protein with the Maui community. Secure your spot now. Become a snack subscriber and join in helping to build more resilient food and ecosystems on Maui. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI venison.com and use promo code BEAR for 20% off your first order.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called The Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore. Guys, we've got an exclusive Bear Grease discount code for FHF Gear. That's Fish Hunt Fight Gear. I've been using their products for the last year, and I love carrying my gear in a chest rig or my binos in their bino harness. It's easier and more accessible than a backpack, and it doesn't get in the way when I'm riding my mule. For a limited time, you can head over to FHFgear.com/Bear Grease, and listeners to this here podcast get a discount on purchases for your FHF Gear system, and you can see how I build my gear system. So go to FHFgear.com/Bear Grease for a special code if you're buying stuff from FHF Gear. Check it out. Fish Hunt Fight, FHF Gear.
Oh.
Now, tell me, Dan, why you got whoopins in kindergarten?
He called them swats.
Swats, whoopins, it doesn't matter. I don't know if I want to talk about it.
Hey, I opened up about Ricky.
Did you go to school with Ricky?
Look, so Ricky and I, they asked me to sit Indian style, and I just didn't know what that was. And so everybody immediately sat down, socially awkward situation. You're standing there. I'm an idiot. I don't know. And the teacher was like, you sit Indian style. And I just couldn't. And
You didn't know what it meant?
No. Go to the office. And then it was SWATs, and I never looked back.
Really?
That was the first day?
That's pretty tough.
First day of preschool.
I got a whooping the first day of 7th grade. I mean,
What happened?
in 7th grade, I got blasted on the first day of school.
First day of school?
First day of school. It set the precedent for not only that year.
Rest of your life.
Pretty well. And
Why did you get whoopings?
we went from desk. You know, you always had a desk to sit in. But in the science class, they had a table there, so it was two folks to the table. And my buddy Greg Hayes was sitting with me.
That was a mistake.
You are not lying. Because he whispered
There's
something
only a
to me.
few Gregs I've ever trusted in my life.
I trust him with my life, but what happened was we were talking.
You kind of dancing around this. What happened?
Well, the teacher asked me. I can't remember now which one of us was talking.
Convenient that you can't quite recall.
I assume it was Greg. Anyway, the teacher said, "Are y'all talking?" And I mean, immediately you would think he's saying, "Stop." No, sir. He's like, you told me a lie. Go stand in the hall. I thought, wow, this is harsh. I'm fixing to get sent outside. Well, I go outside, and I'm standing on the wall. Like, well, this ain't too bad. And then he walks out with the paddle.
Oh, wow.
This has got serious.
Yes.
First day.
First day. He said 3 days or 3 licks. I said, give me 3 licks. And buddy,
3 days of what?
of going home.
No
Suspension.
way.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Wow.
what they. Well, I don't know what they did down where you're from. Same here.
Yeah, that's the kind
Wow.
of stuff they did in Hatfield too.
Yeah.
So
I never got whoopings at school. I was sent to the principal's office one time for defending my friend Donald Myers. Somebody was jumping on Donald
Clay
Myers'
the hero.
back, and I saw it from a long ways away,
I've got a
and
tear
it
in my
made
eye.
me mad. And I went over.
He was
and
like slow
Stood
motion.
off with the guy and kind of wrestled with him a
Yes,
little
you
bit.
did. Yes, you
And
did.
the teacher saw us, and she was like, "Go to the office." And so we went and stood by the office, and I thought my life was over.
Yeah.
The bell rang, and the principal came out and was like, "Y'all go to class." And so I just took off. You know what I did though? I went and told Gary Newcomb. I
Some
said,
things
"Dad,
you just don't tell.
I want you to know I was sent to the principal's office today."
Number one, if that boy from kindergarten says I cussed, I didn't.
This was first grade, so this was the next year.
the
You were really
Ricky was
nervous
gone.
about getting busted for
I
something.
Yeah.
was. Hey, welcome to the Bear Grease Render.
I have no conscience.
Man, I'm very, very excited about today. We have some one very special guest. Everybody else here has been here multiple times. We're gonna go counterclockwise. To my right, Brent Reaves.
Hey, buddy.
Man, good to see you.
Just got back from bear camp.
Yeah, we're
Fun.
gonna talk about that.
Fun
We're gonna talk
times.
about some bear camp here in a little bit.
Yummy.
Isaac Neal.
In the
Man, You're
flesh.
like an old hat now at Bear
Yeah.
Grease Render.
I'm working on I'm going to move into your house. I heard you got some spare rooms now, so pack
Yeah.
a duffel next time. And
Yep. So he was at Bear Camp too, Dan.
Awesome.
We're going to save our mystery guest to the end, skipping over the mystery guest, Misty Newcomb. Welcome, Misty.
I also was at bear camp.
She was.
Yes.
I'm
proud.
wondering why I didn't get a bear camp.
It was friends only.
Man, hey, listen, if I had more places to bear hunt, I would invite all of you.
You know, I take it personally.
And to Misty's right, Daniel Roop. Dr. Dan Roop, good to see you, man.
Happy to
Hey,
be here.
Brent, do you mind giving us a audio tour of Daniel's attire? He's looking pretty sharp today.
Daniel's hair is parted in the middle. It's looked very aerodynamic. His beard is full, and I see no gray hair in there. That from this, a little patch. I see a little patch, but he's dressed in a blue plaid shirt with a tie. He's got a tie tack.
is that a half Windsor or a full Windsor?
That is
He's got a
that's
pretty
a half
good-looking
Windsor.
belt
That's a half
buckle.
Windsor
Old
right
Fort
there.
Hey, now
Days
you want me to
rodeo
do
belt.
this, Newcomb, or do
Sorry,
you want to
go
do it?
Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
That's a glimpse in this right there is
Whose
a glimpse.
podcast is this anyway?
It's a glimpse into Misty's life right here.
True story.
Misty,
True
tell him the story. Here's the story.
Yeah.
He's also got on blue jeans, some kind of cowboy boots, and a belt buckle the size of a small child. It says something about Old Fort Worth.
Old Fort Days Rodeo.
Old Fort Days.
Looking good.
Belt buckles from 1979.
No way.
That's the year that I
Of
blessed
our
this earth.
birth.
You were born in 79?
My birth first.
No,
I'm older. No, I've always been
I'm older, taller, and better looking.
Oh man. Wow.
I was
Dan's
looking at me
September
in
18.
shock. I
You're
don't know.
October 18.
Everybody knows that. Dang it. I don't know how.
You
You're,
just
You don't
gave-
teach math, do you?
You just gave
Actually,
Daniel's
Dan
birthday.
is taller and better looking than me. I am slightly older.
We voted.
You know, I just want to applaud Dan that the hairline is special. It's kind of feathered, and my kids know Uncle Dan best for being the guy who went a decade without brushing your hair.
I still don't brush my hair.
It just falls down now.
It does.
It didn't for a long time.
Well,
it went
was-
straight up for
it
a
was-
long time.
It was in my youth. It was extra ornery.
Okay.
And now it's calmed down.
Hey, okay. Our mystery guest sitting directly in front of me is my uncle, Mike Schultz. Mike, it is an honor to have you here. I got say hi to everybody, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
So
It's good to be here.
So I've got to give an introduction to Mike Schultz. Mike went with me. Number one, he's here because he went with me to Arizona 3 or 4 weeks ago, whenever it was, when we went to meet Warner Glenn. So that's what we're going to talk about on this podcast is Warner Glenn. So Mike went down there with me, and Mike Schultz was the one who had to have been close to 20 years ago. I mean, when you first told me about your friend, Jay Dussard,
right,
who had photographed and had these friends who were the Glenns, and they were mountain lion hunters, and his daughter hunted with him, and they had mules, and you told me about them years and years ago and showed me photos of them.
Right.
And I mean, I just always thought, wow, that's so cool. And then just this year, it kind of all came together, and you went with me down there. And Mike to say Mike is a photographer anymore, it's pretty easy to be a photographer. Like, I have occasionally said, yeah, I'm a photographer, because I have a nice camera and take photos and stuff. Mike Schultz has, aside from his professional career, which he was a dentist, so he is a doctor as well. We can call him Dr. Schultz. He's dedicated his life to photography, to a pretty big portion of his world. Mike, tell us just a little bit about the type of photography you've focused on.
Well, for the beginning of my career, it was pretty much landscape oriented. And I did that with large box cameras with big film holders and that kind of thing. I did that for probably 25 years. And then I started working professionally, mostly because I had an interest in large industry. And then I started using smaller cameras and getting more interested in industry and what goes on in large industry like steel mills or foundries and that type of thing. And that's been pretty much the focus of my work since then, although I still do some landscape work as well, but most of it is more centered around industry and the workers and the work that they do.
So Mike has traveled around the world. He got a Guggenheim.
Right.
Do you know what that means, Dan?
Is that a medical condition? Are you okay?
You can go to the drugstore and get some salve.
It's a new type of implant.
You ought to put some barrel on that, buddy. No,
Is it-
Guggenheim.
That's
You know
a
what
museum.
Guggenheim is, Isaac?
Ain't that a
Familiar
museum?
with the museum.
Okay.
Cool
Should
looking
he-
building.
should he be
Let me
wearing a
just say,
mask?
let me just interpret this for us hillbillies. A Guggenheim is like a massive honor and award and a how about you tell us what it is, Mike?
Well, the Guggenheim Fellowship is an award given through a competition that's held every year throughout North America. It was started in the mid-1920s, I believe, by a senator by the name of Guggenheim, who had a son who died at age 14. And in order to honor their son, they started this foundation. Now, the name Guggenheim is often associated with the Guggenheim Museum in New York. Same family, but the Guggenheim Fellowship is not really the Guggenheim Museum. It's a different branch of the family that started this. And they give awards in science, arts, performance, literature, composition, you name it. And that they give those awards every year.
Any chance they'd give any kind of award to me and Brent?
I'm taller.
Yeah, I think there's such a uniqueness there. I think there's a very good
Is there like a category you know?
Don't fence me in,
to?
fella.
I don't know Brent well enough to be able to define that.
But you're out.
So you got this Guggenheim, which was basically they sponsored an initiative that you did, and you made your book.
That's correct. I made a book.
Yeah. So you traveled the world and went
Yeah.
to foundries, which I wouldn't have known what a foundry was. Do you know what a foundry is?
Well, it makes steel.
I'm looking at Dan.
Makes steel. Everybody knows
You
that.
just got Dan off
He's
the
a
hook.
doctor. Everybody in here but me and Isaac's a doctor or something.
Well,
He's
Brent,
supposed to know.
You knew it, and he didn't. I could tell by his eyes.
That ain't the only thing.
No,
There are books filled with stuff you don't know.
No, Mike has traveled the world going to foundries, which is where they basically cast huge molten cast steel for huge parts. And so like it's like going into the underworld. I mean, visually, you just can't comprehend the images.
Have you ever been to a foundry?
I happen to own a book about this big.
That's not
and
the question. That's not the answer to that. Have you ever been to a foundry?
I have not.
Okay.
Mike, okay, back to Mike Schultz. Well, yeah, what's the name of the book, Mike?
It's called Foundry Work, and there were actually 2 books done. There was a volume 1 and a volume 2. that were done out of that.
And they're amazing. I mean, they really capture.
Can people buy those books, Mike?
Yeah, they can get them off my website. That's primarily
MichaelSchultzPhotography.com.
Yep.
Hey, you can go to my Instagram and see the couple of the photos that are on my Instagram Mike took. And they were they weren't like artistic photos necessarily. They were just me and Jay, and I put one of me and Warner up.
Did you say how to get to your website?
Clay did.
MichaelSchultzPhotography.com.
I want to get that book.
It's amazing.
You guys know I like doing introductions. We spend like 30 minutes doing introductions. I got to say this about Mike because I don't know when Mike will be back on the render.
Judging by what's going on around here now,
let's just say I had 5 fingers on one hand.
Hypothetically,
Mike Schultz would be top 5 most influential
True story.
men.
Why did
in
you
my
bring
life.
up the hand?
awesome.
Well, I mean,
You could have just said top 5. You started with the hand, and I thought we were going somewhere.
it is a podcast. No one can see what you're doing.
I'm just holding up my hand for drama. Okay.
Which finger am I?
No, listen. Which finger? Okay. The pinky is Dan Root. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not the smallest finger.
No, I got to tell you. No, Mike and I view Mike as like, he's my uncle. And so I look up to him, but I would say our relationship is not as much like uncle-nephew. It's more like friends. That's the way I view it. And we've run around together a lot in the last 20 years. Man, I was trying to tell this to Isaac earlier today. By nature, I would be unorganized, mismanaged.
Truth.
Much more than I am now.
Okay.
Really?
And the precision inside of Mike Schultz's life has dramatically altered who I am today.
If this
For
is
real.
you dramatically altered,
Thank
you, Mike.
Yes, this is him dramatically.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes,
Otherwise,
and thank you, Mike.
total chaos would have been unleashed on the world.
You know,
3 years ago.
You're joking, and I'm being serious.
I am not joking.
3 years ago. Listen to what I'm telling you. 3 years ago, I rolled up in here early one morning. We were getting on a flight 3 hours later going to Saskatchewan. Clay says, man, I got to pack. I've been packed for 3 weeks, and I'm unorganized. But he's that morning, man, I got to get my stuff together. I'm like, dude.
I'd been busy, Brent.
For real.
Wow, Mike, this is supposed to be a compliment.
I didn't know it was this high.
Yeah.
Well, when it starts out so low.
Mike is also a master woodworker. He makes some of the finest furniture you're ever seen. There's anything Mike does, he puts precision into it, and that has impacted me. And I think it's important that, the people that you're around, I've learned to be impactable, to see character traits inside of people, recognize your own deficiency, and be like, I want to be more like that. And I'm not, and we're going to get back to Mike when we talk about meeting Warner Glenn. I want to talk about bear camp, though. So last week we had the kind of Newcomb Family and Friends bear camp.
Almost all the friends.
Almost all the friends.
That box was checked, Daniel.
And,
sorry.
Hey, I wish Bear Newcomb could be here. He could tell his story.
Oh,
but,
he's got one, man.
Give us an overview, Brent, of our weekend.
Well, I mean, we get there on the day before it opens up, more or less. Y'all got there a couple days early. I got there on Friday. James and I go around. We check baits. You guys are checking baits.
That's James Lawrence.
James Lawrence.
Who was on episode number 2 of the Bear Grease podcast. Did a bio on him.
Not a daylight picture anywhere out of the 4 baits that James and I were looking at. So it was just a coin flip of where we were going to go. And James says, where you want to go? And I'm like, I told him the spot I wanted. I told Clay the same thing. I said, it's an old standby spot. River killed her first bear there.
Shepard killed his
first bear there. I know James has killed 3 bears there. But all of them had shooter bears going.
Just not during the day.
Just not during the day. So me and Isaac roll in there.
Isaac was there. Because Isaac, we filmed this whole thing, Dan. Even though you weren't there, you'll be able to feel like you were there.
Yeah,
because you're less of a visual media type of guy.
If you had 5 fingers on a hand,
you would have been the 6th finger. If I had 6. Isaac was there.
I'm your weird 6th finger. That's what I am.
He's an extra thumb.
So Isaac was there because he was helping film. He and Dave Gardner for a film that's going to come out for the Meat Eater YouTube channel at some point in the future. So Isaac was filming.
Yeah,
so that's why Isaac was there. Carry on.
It started off great, man. We decided we're going to go. That's where we're going to go. So you guys had gone to a different spot and had left earlier. I stayed back to help Shep get to his spot, help Misty get to their spot.
Hold on, we missed a whole day.
A whole day.
He's telling his bear camp.
Okay, this is okay.
You want
Misty,
the 30,000
Misty
foot
and my
view.
youngest son came in. So James, Brent, Clay, Isaac, Dave Gardner, and then Misty and Shepard came. And then on that first Friday night, my mom and dad came.
Juju was there. Gary was there.
The
Gerald
guy
was
that
there.
owns
Mr.
the
Gerald,
cabin.
Mr. Gerald, Miss Lila was there.
And we had a big shindig.
Man,
Everybody
everybody
Big
was there.
coffee drinking.
Oh,
This
so much
sounds
coffee.
amazing. Guys.
We drink coffee 24 hours a day when we're at.
Gerald
with our
made it in a
friend.
55-gallon barrel and set it right on the pot, right on the fire.
Yeah.
So there was coffee enough for everybody. It was.
I don't know about the size, but the story's true.
That may have been an exaggeration.
We would come in at like midnight and he'd be like,
I put the coffee on for you.
coffee's hot still.
Yep.
I made it fresh when about 11.
Yep, it was good stuff.
And
So
we'd hit it hard.
Yeah.
So,
Good
so
stuff.
that was the first night, which was kind of like everybody came in. And so we're staying at a place. We're not like camping. We're staying at a cabin. So then what happened the next day, Brent?
okay.
So you can tell about your hunt now.
Now here we go. So we get everybody sit on the stand. Isaac and I do, and then we take off for our spot. It's like 9 miles as a crow flies from where we are, but and when you go in
14.
the mountains, 14 back and forth and left and right and all that kind of stuff. And we get almost there. And I look very frantically in the back seat of the truck, and then I look back at Isaac, and I thought, man, we got to go back to the camp because I forgot my bow. So he's like, is this going to be a problem? I'm like, if we don't go back and get it, it's going to be a real big problem.
And turns out he was right.
So we go back. We go all the way back to the camp, get it. We get on the stand. Our target time to get there was 3. We were an hour late. We got there at 4.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hour delayed.
Hour delay.
We were set at, I think, 4:12.
Mm-hmm. We were set. He had the cameras, everything set up, ready to roll. I told him, I said, man, I know you had never set on one of these bear baits. I said, but you talk about the golden hour of deer hunting. Mm-hmm. I said, we're going to have the golden 15 minutes if we're lucky before dark. It's just the way it is. They're going to come in. We may see them out there. We may hear them. But they're going to hang around and, at dark. Especially we got no daylight pictures. 5 minutes to 6. I look over to my left, and sure enough, here comes a bear. And I'm mic'd up, and I tell Isaac, here you come. I see a bear coming. And
we hadn't had a daylight picture there in a long time.
in over a week.
So it's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. I was more.
Did you ever think about just shooing it off?
No, that thought never entered my mind.
Why would it?
You're in the wrong place.
Yeah, you're early. But anyway, good bear walks up, good shooter bear, and walks behind, and he's behind the barrel and looks directly up there at us. And I thought, well, this is it. But I had already come to full draw. Mm-hmm. Bear takes a turn.
Hey, I watched the video. You about jerked the back out of that bow when you hit your valley.
Oh, when I pulled back.
Boom!
Well, there was a small window there, when
You
I
were trying to pull it back while the bear's
behind the tree. Right.
So you were just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as his eye disappeared, I pulled it back. So when he come out and he's looking at me, I got it right between his eyes. I thought, you're going to one way or the other. If I get a shot, I'm ready. And he did that old thing, where they just kind of start doing the move slow. And all of a sudden they're gone.
yeah.
But when he turned to the left, back to the left, or the bear turned back to the left, and I had a good quartering shot, I turned it loose. I saw it come out the front. And 2 or 3 jumps, and we watched him walk away.
Yeah, that was what was odd. He shoots to spare, gets what seems to be like a 10-ring shot, and the bear takes a couple leaps and then just walks off. Which is not, I wouldn't say that's common.
No, it was nothing. The other 2 bears that I've shot like that I've taken, when I shot them, man, it was like you lit a fuse. They were gone.
Yes.
And both of them died within, 40 yards, I guess, of where I was at.
Hey, we're going backwards here, but the first bear you killed, I was with you.
You were.
And it ran like a racehorse about 20 yards, tumbled down a very steep hill, and splashed into a creek.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I was there. I absolutely, vividly. The next year, the next bear I killed, which was last year, that bear was standing
He did the same thing.
in the same tracks and ran the same place but got hung up. But they were both dead once they hit the edge of the woods right there.
Yeah.
This one, man, I felt good about the shot. I mean, it surprised me when it went off. It was the hair I was looking at. That knock covered it up when it went through. The bear took 4 or 5 good jumps the way I remember it. I hadn't seen the footage. And then he just walked off. And I was turning out looking at Isaac. I'm
No.
bug-eyed.
You stared at that bear for 20 minutes.
Yeah, Isaac probably need to tell
Then-
the rest of this because I had no sense about what was
It
going
felt
on.
like an eternity. You just watched where that bear disappeared for like.
Probably 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot that went on. Hours later, we come back because y'all had to come back to camp. We came all the way off from
Yep.
where we were, got back to camp. We got a problem where we're at. There's very little cell coverage.
Yeah.
So, like, somebody does something, you got to go talk to them.
You got to do it old school.
Well,
you gotta,
actually,
like-
the thing is, Clay was going to invite you, but we got down there.
No signal.
Oh, no signal.
We'll get him next year.
Can't six-finger Dan can't invite him.
And so we go track this bear.
Who wants a 6-finger?
Yeah.
Nobody, apparently.
So we go track this bear, and the bear starts running up a hill.
Yeah.
And that's
where we left it off.
Yeah, they had tracked it a little bit. The bear ran probably 15 yards up a very steep hill, which when I got on the blood trail, I was like, man, that's not a good sign. But it immediately turned back down, and the bear only went, how far, 100 yards? Probably 150.
80. No, he didn't go that far. I'd say about 80 yards from straight line.
Yeah. And
Straight
so,
line from
man,
there.
first day of bear season, we got a really nice bear on the ground. I would say, if I was just being totally honest, if you weren't here and someone said, Clay, tell me really how much Brent's bear weighed, I would say 270. So, I mean, that's a heck of a bear.
So much fat on it.
It was a good bear.
It
Yeah,
was
270.
extremely
Probably
fatty.
270 pounds.
Extremely. I've never seen anything like it.
If Brent were here, though,
320.
Hey, I wrote a whole article on this one time about the reality of bear weights functionally inside a bear camp. Because when a bear is there in the back of the truck and the guy, you're in the heat of the moment. I mean, you're pumped. This is what you wait all year for. And your good buddy has killed this bear. And he goes, man, how much you think that thing weighs? I guarantee you're going to add 35 to 40 pounds. You're not going to do the math in your head. You're not going to calculate it, but you're going to say a number that's
You're going to
way
instinctively do that.
bigger
Right.
than it actually is.
Yep.
Subliminal.
So I've only killed one bear, and I think they told me it was 225. But if you're telling me that one
That bear
was
weighed 175.
100 maybe.
I want to see that picture. I want to see that
Was it
picture.
actually a squirrel?
Oh, this is a different type of bear. Good job, buddy.
Yeah. Bear weights are
A house pet.
very, very commonly overestimated by a minimum of 20%.
Yeah, I would agree
They're
with
hard
that.
they're very hard to judge, and we've weighed enough of them now that we kind of get a feel. But sometimes you can't weigh. Like we weren't able to weigh your bear, and then the bear the next day that I would kill. I hate to spill the beans that quickly.
We've
I
all
killed
seen the
the bear
pictures.
the next day, and I estimated my bear to weigh 300 plus or minus 20 pounds. That was what I.
And so in reality,
That was just Clay by himself, not in front of the truck.
No truck.
By this calculation, if I had asked Brent would have said, "Oh, that bear weighs 350."
well, Brent, I saw both bears.
No, you wouldn't have seen my bear.
No, you did not.
You didn't see my bear because
About
I
to get
skinned
some
it up.
shade
I skinned
thrown
it
on
on
you,
the
Go ahead
Jay.
and say bear camp. There's some tensions, some marital tensions at bear camp.
No, all Misty cares about is bear fat. Literally, right?
Bear fat and other things.
And
too.
also bear grease.
And meat. Yeah, I want the
Really,
meat.
Misty was mad at me last year.
I was. A little bit.
Has there been a year where she hasn't been?
Let's narrow that down.
I'm just saying, last year, Clay took a lot of people, we won't call names, hunting. Definitely not Dan.
Man, we started off on the wrong foot with Dr. Dan.
Hey, tell me about that year.
Dan is getting snippy.
Let's start the podcast by making fun of his outfit and then only talk about things he wasn't invited to.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine, guys. I'm fine.
And so he didn't, other people got the meat and they got the grease. And I mean, we had a lot of time to cook last year. I had both girls home and we wanted to do some
we
things.
ran out of berries.
And it
fast.
was
bacon in home.
No,
didn't bring home the bacon.
He
did
did
he?
not literally
Last
or
year,
figuratively.
It was a good year.
And
but
then he
it
goes
was-
hunting in
it was
the
a tough year.
spring, and that bear had. I mean, he took a picture of them holding up the little tiny sliver of fat. That
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing on it.
The bear,
So I've been
bear kill that I was in on this spring, which I didn't pull the trigger. Literally, I took a video of the amount of fat we pulled off of that bear. Very small amount of, a spring bear up in Montana is not going to have that much fat.
A lot of the bears are going keto now.
Yeah, they do up there. A lot of protein.
You
Change
still
things.
missed
So-
an important part of that day, of that kill of my bear.
What's that? Tell me.
Between Isaac, Dave, you, and me.
Ooh.
Millions of views. Millions, literally millions of views, video and photo between the four of us. And we didn't take one picture of me with my bear.
It is so
true story.
sad. Yeah, it is so sad.
You had two professional photographers and one photographer, and we didn't get a single picture of your bear.
Not one.
Man, you should have had one more person
Maybe
there.
a sixth finger.
Daniel, will you be my
I do a lot
man
of
to
work
remind me to
with
take
my
pictures?
iPhone. It's overlooked.
Yeah,
Often-
I really
often
regret that.
overlooked.
Often overlooked.
You know,
You are going to
I
have a great video, though.
never thought about it until you said, "Hey, we didn't take any pictures."
I mean, your bear, we had skinned it. It was in an ice chest, and I was like, "We get any pictures of your bear?"
Well, I think
I mean,
that
we
actually.
hit it hard, though,
What are
man.
friends for?
I think that's a part of the story that's very, incredibly valuable. I did not know where we hunted had a drop-off box. Like, you go in the 90s, you would drop off
Oh,
your videos at
VHS tape.
Blockbuster. Yeah.
You rented Cool Running from-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you leave it in the overnight drop box. You go to the post office today and you've got a letter you want to mail off. You put it where we were. They have an overnight bear box, a cooler that you just drop your stuff off.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of crazy. I was.
Yeah, I'll go get it tomorrow. Matter of fact.
No, we had a great bear camp.
We
It was great.
And Isaac, real quick, what was your perception of the whole thing? You'd never been to our camp or anything.
Oh, incredible. The hunting was great. Saturday, Brent got a bear. Sunday, you got a bear. Monday,
Monday.
you got to tell that story. Or are
Big
you just
time.
going to have him on?
You
and
gotta
do a
have Bear
full
do that.
I mean,
podcast?
I thought about bringing him on, but yeah, I'll tell
Okay,
it.
wait. The most manly person in bear camp wasn't in bear camp and was Clay's 15-year-old son. Aaron.
Exactly.
That's right.
Name Bear.
What he
That's
did
right.
was everyone was just like incredible.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. I don't know if you stopped in at an O'Reilly lately, but I use one because we have one right not too far from my house. People there are super helpful. I don't care if I'm getting boat batteries, car parts, whatever. Love those guys. They got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you don't have to worry if you're in a jam. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free, in or out of your car. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find just the right battery for your vehicle. If you need your windshield wipers replaced, a brake light fixed, quick service, they'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. Whether you are a car aficionado or an auto novice, you will find the employees at O'Reilly Auto Parts to be knowledgeable, helpful, and best of all, friendly. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things do-it-yourself auto. You can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/meat-eater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/meat-eater.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam motor treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who's used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial Whitetail Clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial Whitetail Clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial Whitetail Clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off. So 4 years ago, Bear Newcomb was in line to start bear hunting. You know, River killed a bear first, and Bear was in line to bear hunt. And we hunt over bait. We love hunting over bait. It's the way we hunt. I could tell you, the other way that I love to hunt, which I love even more than hunting over bait, is hunting them in national forests like deer, which is, I believe, the toughest hunt around.
Gotta be.
Toughest hunt I know of in this part of the country, just because of low bear densities, the wide geographic home range that bears have. I mean, you can walk around the woods for years and not see a bear in good bear country. It's tough. And so I saw some fire in Bear's eyes when he was about 10, 11 years old, and I just said, Bear, you ought to think about this. And I knew it had to be his decision. I wasn't going to mandate this. But I planted in his mind the idea of not killing a bear over bait and killing one in the national forest, which I knew was going to be very hard. And mainly because his brother and sisters were killing bear and kind of getting attention for it and whatnot. But Bear liked the idea of it. And he said, yeah, that's what I want to do, Dad. And he had a moment of weakness one day when he was, I think, 12, and James Lawrence didn't know that we had this little deal going, and I was gone. And James said, hey, Bear, why don't you come hunting with me? And so Bear was like, okay. And so Bear took his bow.
Can't say no to James
and
Lawrence.
actually clipped a bear. So he shot at a bear over bait out there, but we never found it. And then Bear came back and it was totally fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't upset. But he was like, yeah, Dad, I'm not going to hunt over bait again. And he just didn't have the tact at that age to be like, Mr. James, no, actually, I don't hunt over. I'm not going to do that. So, yeah. So for the last several years, we've hunted in national forest and tried to get him a bear. And years ago, I said, Bear, and this was before we made this deal. I told Bear, I said, one day I'm going to drop you off, and I'm going to give you a pack and some freeze-dried meals, and I'm going to send you off, and I'm going to pick you up 3 days later and let you camp all by yourself. And this is when he was just a little boy, and I remember his eyes lighting up and just thinking how cool that would be. And that's what we did this year. It was time. Back in the summer, I said, Bear, you need to hunt the first 3 days of season. And so we're having this big bear camp, which our bear camp is just a ton of fun. I mean, we eat great food. We sit around the fire. I mean, it's a lot of work.
We ate all the bars.
We're baiting bears. Yeah, we had lots of fruit bars and different things. It's camaraderie. It's fun. we don't hunt the mornings, pretty much just hunt the evenings. So, we're sleeping in a little bit in the morning, sitting around drinking coffee, just having a good time. Well, the night before season, all of us drive over and dump Bear out in the woods, and he's got his pack and his bow, and he's got a tethered tree saddle, which is a way for him to get up in a tree. He had some sticks, and he's got an inReach, and parts of his hunt he'll be in cell range. And so the whole weekend we're back living in luxury, and Bear Newcomb's out, roughing it out in the woods by himself. And it was so cool because there wasn't probably a 5-hour stretch of time when somebody didn't say something about Bear being out there. What did anybody get an update? Has anybody heard anything? Has he seen anything? Well, on the second day, he saw a sow with cubs, which was a big deal. He messaged me, Dad, I just saw a sow with cubs.
Huge.
And you can't shoot a sow with cubs. And it was within 8 yards of him. Just walked right under him. And so, big win. Like, I thought, there's our win. And he is not just hunting. He had a game plan. What he did is he hunted out from his camp for the first 2 hours of the morning and still hunted, just moving along, slipping in through the wind. And then by 10 o'clock, he would be hunting in his tree stand, which was over some bear sign, where we knew some bears were moving through on natural food, essentially. Okay. And he sat in that stand from 10 a.m. till 6 a.m. for 3 days, 8 hours hanging in that saddle. And
6 p.m.
to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., so 8 hours. And on the second day, he saw bears. And Dave Gardner took a photo of my phone because Dave and I were hunting when I messaged Bear and said, hey, we'll come get you tonight. This is on day 2. So he's been out there now 2 full nights and 3 days, the way it worked out. Well, parts of 3 days. And I said, hey, if you want to come to bear camp, we'll come pick you up tonight. Meet us, down the road. And I I was trying to give him a way out. I didn't want him just to be.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got the message. He said, nope. I'm staying. I got to kill a bear. So he stayed. And the next day, we had already killed bears. We were rendering bear fat. We had no more than filled the last jar of bear fat. The last batch.
We were working on it.
We were working on the last batch of bear grease.
Yeah.
And I see the little green button beeping on my inReach.
We had sort of mentally all right, finish the bear grease. We're going to go get some B-roll shots for the film, get a sunset shot, whatever.
We were winding down.
Back to civilization. Green light on the inReach.
Green light on the inReach. I go to it, and it just says, I killed a bear! Exclamation point. And we just flipped out. We really did. It was probably
Jubilee.
I can't ever remember personally being more expressive. I was just like, he killed her!
Man, your eyes look like cartoon eyeballs.
I couldn't believe
they were
it.
that big.
I messaged him back and I said, we're on our way. It took us 3 hours to get to him by the time we got there. And me and Dave and Isaac went up to him. Brent went and got ice with my dad.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
So Shepard and I had left bear camp. We were trying to get home before dark because we weren't staying overnight.
10 or 20 minutes.
Right. And so as soon as I get into cell range, my phone's going off because we have a family text thread, and Bear sent a message to the text thread. And so his sisters were the only ones in cell range, but they were in different states. And so they're all talking, and I see the conversation, and I see all the, the Newcomb thread is popping up. And so Shepard and I look, and I pull over, and there's a construction area. I pull over, and I was afraid they were going to go be out of cell range all night long and not see the message, because it is sometimes difficult to get those inReach messages, and especially where we're at, because there's a real thick canopy. So I turned my car around, and I told Shepard later on, I have no recollection of going through the construction zone. I don't know how. And Shepard said, you did. You were safe. He said, but I thought
I saw an orange cone stuck in the grill of your car.
And so we it was real sweet because the girls, our bear is not probably the most expressive of the Newcombs, and they were taking pictures of him on FaceTime, and because his face was like glowing. I mean, it was really sweet. And
It's good stuff, man.
he had to skin the bear by himself, and he didn't know how to
oddly, where the bear ran, he had like better cell coverage than we have right here.
Yeah.
Where he was hunting, he did not as much, but when it went it did. Yeah. Anyway, so he FaceTimed his sister.
And she was able to get a picture of the bear before he skinned it via FaceTime. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was neat. Then we went and got him, and then when he came off the mountain, there was a whole crew of people waiting. My dad and mom and who else?
Brent, Misty, Shep.
Yeah. And anyway, they had drinks for him and food, and it was a big deal. Yeah. It was awesome.
My man, he slept on the ground, no pad, which was just rocks. It looked like grass until you laid down, and then his pillow was a stuff sack full of grass.
Yeah.
He ate one freeze-dried meal a day. Is that what he said?
Yep.
And he said, and Dave, I think, asked him, like, "Did you get scared?" He's like, "Well, there's this time I was eating dinner, and a skunk came along. And I thought, if that thing sprays me, my hunt's over." It's like, that's what, because I would have been,
It was a skunk.
He did good. I was proud of him.
You know, the title for that hunt should be Braveheart.
Oh, yeah.
It really, it really shows a lot of bravery and
just dedication to a plan, which is unusual. Yeah. No, I was really proud of him.
Yeah. Everybody was. Still am.
Well,
speaking of one of the best hunters.
Speaking of the topics at hand, Warner Glenn.
How good was that?
Who, Mike, you listened to the podcast.
Sure did.
What did you think? You were there.
I was there. It really brought back memories and just feelings I had when I was there. I thought it was extremely well crafted and put together and condensed because it covered, we were there a total of maybe a day. Total.
We were there a short time.
Very short time.
But we gathered probably 3-4 hours of audio content.
A lot of stuff happened, and they are very busy people running that ranch. They were extremely gracious with how much time they gave, and it happened quick. The podcast is excellent, and the feedback that I've had from my friends and from especially Jay Dussard, who is in the podcast, Jay said, quote, "It was fabulous." And he's known Warner for over 60 years.
Yeah. I always like it. I'm trying to make a point when I interview some of these older people to ask them where they were when John F. Kennedy died. Because do you remember the other guy, Britt Davis, who's 90 in the Appalachian Mountain podcast? I asked about where he was.
Yeah.
Because it really is. It's kind of like just a sampling of time. And Mr. Britt was driving a road grader.
Really?
Yeah, he was driving a road grader. And you know what? He worked most of his life. I mean, that's what he did. Mr. Warner Glenn, you asked him where he was at when John F. Kennedy died. He was on a mule hunting lions in the desert. And that's what he has done a lot of his life. What was so unique is that Jay Dussard had the skull, and it just in pencil, it said November 22nd, 1963. Yeah. And then I said, "Jay, how did it impact you when JFK died?" He said, "Well, it mainly just reminded me that I voted for Nixon." What'd you think, Dan?
I think for some reason, one of the things that sticks out to me is when his daughter was just talking about the way that she, almost like intergenerationally, the way she kind of shows him respect and honor. And like she said, I ask him questions that I know the answer to.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, what a rare kind of glimpse into their family dynamic and how they treat one another. Respect. And honestly, after the podcast, I called my mom. I thought, I want to interact like that, and I want to. I really enjoyed kind of the intergenerational. And then the other thing that really got to me was when she was. They're both talking about the one dog.
Oh yeah.
That's older.
Yeah. Hook.
And when she was describing Hook, and that was like a metaphor for her dad.
Yeah.
And kind of watching him do the end of his life, but continue to model and be a type that everyone can. I thought, man, that's fantastic.
Yeah. The way she described it when she said quietly going on.
Uh-huh.
You could have I don't know if that whole podcast or that man, the image I had of him after listening to that, if that wasn't the most fitting description of the stuff that he does and what he represents out there, quietly going on. It was really powerful for me to listen to that.
Yeah. What did you think, Brent?
Well, it reminded me of a lot of people that, my grandfather and, people that I've known and read about and heard about. You referenced Daniel Boone in that thing.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff came back in my head about how he was, how humble Mr. Glenn is. And, to him, the stuff that he was doing like Boone, it was, I'm not doing this for glory, or this is just something that needs to be done. And this is what I do. This is where I am in my life, and this is the things that I do to take care of my family and myself. And I just go do them. They just happen to be hard.
Yeah.
You know?
There's so many things that I wanted to talk about him. First of all, I think I can say this and be safe in that, because I don't want it to sound negative. I expected Warner Glenn to be, and when I say a proud man, I don't mean that negatively. I'd never spoken to the man, I dealt with Kelly the whole time, like setting this up, And I knew Warner had a ton of character. I mean, like, he was the kind of guy I wanted to learn who he was. And the biggest thing, and Mike and I discussed this in great detail, and Misty too. I've talked to Misty about it. What I was most impacted by, and it was very real to me, was his humility. It was the dominant feature of who he was. And it wasn't just a personality trait. It wasn't just niceties. It wasn't hospitality. It was a deep, genuine humility that can't be fabricated. And I'm telling you, what I said at the end of that podcast, I meant, in that sometimes we, as men, and me, I was talking about me, at the age I am at, I feel like there's this pressure from the world to be bold and confident. I think I have mistaken that at times to be the dominant feature of what my life is supposed to be. And just what I saw. And man, sometimes stuff is just revelational. And by that I mean you see something and you cannot explain why it changes you, but it does. You walk out of it and you're different than you were before.
Yeah.
Really, we were pulling out of Warner Glenn's driveway, and Mike and I had this conversation. And I said, I could have told you this before. I could have spoken these words in this order. But I said, I see how boldness and confidence are, the foundation of it is deep humility and othersness and servant focused, which that's what I saw inside of Mr. Warner. And because I expected kind of a John Wayne kind of guy.
All right.
And he did stuff that John Wayne would have, fell out of his horse if he'd done. Mr. Warner really, and y'all hadn't even heard the most of it. And a lot of stuff in his book, he talks about, just wild stuff. He is really a modern, they could make a movie about him. He's tracked, his neighbor was murdered by an illegal immigrant that came across the border. And Warner Glenn tracked that man down on a horse until the dude went over the border, and they couldn't pursue him any longer. Warner, roping mountain lions. Warner, wait till you hear the podcast number 2, when you're going to hear when he got into a fist fight with somebody. I'm not going to tell you who it was until the podcast, but changed his life. It really did. And then he became this diplomat. He was in his 40s, kind of the peak of when a man, I think in his 40s, a man, he's not an adolescent, he's not an old man, and it's like you can really screw stuff up in your 40s, I think.
Why are you looking at me when you're saying this?
You happen to be the sixth finger.
In that same vein, though, that's when you can fix them.
Well, that's right.
Thank you, Brent.
It feels like when you're in your 40s, your world is starting to formulate. You gain confidence. Your career's developed. You have decades of potential accolades that have built into your life. It makes sense that he would have done what he did, but it shifted him and changed him. Anyway, I look at the thing behind the thing. I do. That's just the way we do.
Just as you're talking about this, Clay, I'm thinking something, kind of a new thought here that I see. You know, his dad was Marvin, and Marvin became very well known, very famous in the Southwest. And oftentimes when you have a famous father, you oftentimes have issues with the sons. And I didn't sense that at all in that family or inside of Warner at all. Warner had also become, let's say, famous. And yet you could see that it never touched his life. The amount of accolades or the amount of attention he had in his life was really, it's like it was deflected off of him. He never got defined by that. He just did what he was supposed to do and kept doing it and enjoying his life and making sure his family was secure. And he didn't run after that fame, which I think is pretty common in a second son underneath a famous father. They want to cut out their own territory. And you didn't see that with Warner at all.
You know, there's been a fair bit of press given to Warner Glenn over the years. Like this book, like he didn't write a book about himself. Somebody else wrote the book about him. That I picked up a book. I'm reading a book right now that references Warner Glenn. It's about Jaguars, which you'll hear in a later podcast I'm going to do. But what I saw, too, was a man he didn't ask for me to come to his house. I sought him out. Like, he does not seek attention, but he was very, very hospitable. And I mean, Warner Glenn didn't know who Meat Eater was. I mean, it wasn't like we got some kind of special treatment because I mean, he ain't never heard of her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they treated us like kings. They really did. And I admired that. But Misty, what did you think?
Some of what I thought has already been said, so I'll just elaborate a little.
Or tell me a favorite part.
Well, let me ask you a
many
question.
Yeah,
let me ask you a question. I'm just thinking about what you just said about him when he was in his 40s. Is that when the incident that you're going to talk about in the next podcast happened? Mm-hmm. That's just super interesting to me because you could see how no spoiler alerts here, but let's just build some suspense. Everyone should listen to the next podcast. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really good. I thought when Kelly talked at the end, it was very good, and I thought there was a real sense of mutual honor. You could see it in her. She was the one talking, and what she was sharing was really good. You could also see it in him, and I think that it's sometimes hard as you age to release, ownership of things to your kids in these multi-generational families.
Absolutely.
And what I thought was I just thought the whole family dynamic was very unique, and there was a culture of honor. There was a culture of humility, and I felt that when you came back. I think that would be my biggest takeaway from the whole podcast is how you were when you came back, and I could tell that it had really impacted you. And when you started talking to me just over coffee about the impact of interacting with this guy, and then to hear Kelly describe him the way she described him, and to hear how he gave, basically is giving the business over to her. And there's a real level of partnership. And I thought as a parent, that's something that as we age and as our kids are only just barely dipping their toe into like their early years and their dreams and their visions. And there's no family business here. It's not like we're passing down a business, but just a lifestyle and in a transition moment right now where our kids are doing some real exciting things. And I want to be able to interface with my kids with that same level of honor and no sense of just a sense of respect and a sense of humility. And I would want to pass that on to them for them to pass on to their kids. And I was really moved by the intergenerational dynamics there, going both ways. Kelly to him and him to her. And like you said, Mike, what Marvin must have passed to them for him to be able to do. And other stories that Clay said has told me that we'll make it on the podcast next week. Talk a little bit about Marvin. And I thought you could just see there was something at the head. And I thought it was an aspirational place for parents to stand. Yeah.
Hey, before I forget about it, if you want to get Warner Glenn's book, you can buy it from W Hunting Supply, Buddy Woodbury, and our buddies at W. You can order it from there.
Spell it out.
It's actually dusupply.com, like D as in the letter D, usupply.com. Isaac, what did you think? I haven't give me a. You can't say, well, I just want to piggyback off what everybody else said.
I absolutely am in agreement. I've got two thoughts. I've got two thoughts. One, do you intend to shorten his first name as well to just Warren? You're talking about a lot of parallels with Dan Boone and okay, so this isn't as profound or anything like that, but when she was talking about getting bitten by a lion, I was attacked by dogs 3 years ago, Rottweilers, in a bad way. There were 3 of them, and I had 48 punctures. One in
no way. Are you serious?
Yeah, I got a big.
I hope you weren't wearing those Crocs.
I wasn't, but I was riding my bike with my daughter in the trailer.
Boots, you probably
Oh my
protected
goodness!
yourself.
Well,
say that again. I missed it. I was
riding my bike with my daughter in the trailer. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, I was wearing shoes, and I kicked that dog in the head as hard as I could, and it did nothing. I have
just
never
riding
felt
down the road.
Yeah, just in town.
Are you much of a kicker?
Yeah, I played soccer growing up. I feel pretty
I'm not
good.
Trying to make any accusations. Just wondered.
It was the most impotent I've ever felt in my life. Just like I have no power in this situation, and knowing that, and then thinking about their situation, which is a mountain lion, which is a heck of a lot bigger than a Rottweiler. It's like it just made the experience emotional of listening to like Warner coming in and beating up the thing. And keep in mind, this was what. How many years ago?
Well, the lion bite was actually
2014, 2015?
19.
Yeah, the lion bite was more recently.
So how old is he?
Oh, Warner would have been 80-something.
When he was punching the lion down?
When she gets bit by a lion and he goes in and starts punching, and I'm thinking, guy's not a spring chicken. Anyway, all of that was pretty
Not all chickens are the same.
That's right.
Some have 6 fingers.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing that stood out was when he talked about how they rope those mountain lions and put them in zoos. I had somebody write me, I don't know who it was, somebody on Instagram, say that they thought it was really unique that he was able to look back on that and say, hey, it was probably a mistake. We wouldn't do that today.
Yeah.
And him just kind of be okay with that.
Contextualizing it.
Yeah,
like,
I've learned since then. Rare muscle inside of someone. I mean, anybody. I mean, like, because you look back on stuff, and most of the time you just wouldn't. I mean, if you didn't have a problem with it then, you wouldn't have a problem with it now. That's not a good way to describe it, but
I love both sides of it because he has the cognizance to say, like, hey, that was wrong. It's probably one of the worst things you could do. Wouldn't do that again. And then the commenter to acknowledge that is remorse and not try and shut him down for what he's done in the past. Love both sides.
What do you think, Dan?
I remember that section, and it seemed that he really identified with the mountain lion.
Yes, he did.
He said it's a wild thing made for wild places, and I wouldn't like it if you put me in a pen or an enclosure. And so clearly, as he goes after these animals and hunts them, he's got a high level of respect. It's not, but he's actually identifying with them, which is what gives him empathy. And
I was very happy to bring to attention that it was a Disney movie that was on.
I noticed that.
For real, because they would. Some of these companies would love to just string hunters up and just say, "Look at these hillbilly, redneck, irrelevant barbarians." And it's like, hey, you guys were the ones making movies back in the 60s
back in the day
about roping lions, paying our boys to go do it.
I mean, these are the creators of Bambi.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yeah.
I was going to say in the coming episodes, I think it'll expand even an understanding of Warner and the family and what's going on in that region also, which, again, I look forward to hearing that again because they're more than just a ranching family and they're more than just a hunting family. There's more to their legacy than that.
Yeah. It's kind of hard talking about Warner without being able to talk about everything, but I want to wait just because of that second podcast. Hey, what did you guys think about the part about him running into all the drug dealers, what he called drug mules, on his land?
I was worried that you left it in there. I was worried for Warner.
Why?
Well, what if they hear it and find out that he called after he left?
Oh, everybody calls.
Wait.
There's a drug. There's a.
That's exactly
a drug mule who's listening to the Bear Grease
Yeah, so-
podcast.
okay, so
and
I-
went, doggone it, I saw water Glenn turn me in.
I
You
was
just
actually-
lost one listener,
I was
Alex.
cooking. I was cooking, and I heard that, and I thought that, and then I thought, wait, they would have to
The
be
overlap.
actively listening
Yeah.
to Bear Grease. Probably good. No offense, Clay.
I am very certain that we have a large demographic
Of drug use?
Drug mules.
I was gonna say, just the
Supply
demographic
chain.
is wide. Let me say that listen to Bear Grease.
I thought it was a very pragmatic approach to solving the issue. Howdy, boys. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Just
Okay, he
hunting
tells
mountain
it-
lions.
I couldn't. You know what? It's interesting interviewing somebody like Warner. He is so practical. Like he was always kind of in a hurry to tell his story, even though he's a great storyteller. But I found him, and part of it was because when we were there, they didn't change their life too much for us. Like they still had to do all the things they had to do. So when we got there, he was like, well, we're going to go. You remember when I got there, we went to some well 5 miles away. Like they had work to do. Well, we got to take the dogs out. He didn't do that just because I was there.
Right.
And so when we sat down for the interview, that was the only part of the time that really wasn't like on the schedule. And so like he kind of moved fast, but I wanted him to tell some specific stories that we didn't get to. But in the book, there's a story of him and Kelly coming around the canyon, coming around this trail. And he says there's two guys sitting on a bales of drugs in the trail, and they just surprise each other. And you just can see Warner just like nonchalant, not acting surprised. He didn't like turn and run with his mule.
Right.
He just said he greeted him in Spanish, and he said, "Are those drugs?" This is in the book. He just knew he had to get the elephant. The elephant in the room, go ahead and point it out.
Yeah.
They stopped the mule. They're 10 feet apart or whatever. And he says, "Those drugs?" And he said they just shook their head, yes. And he just said, "Well, we're lion hunting. I guess we'll just go on." And he went past them, went around them, and went on. And they get out of sight. And then he's kind of like, "Holy cow, that was wild." and he turns to Kelly, and Kelly says, "Did you see the other 8 guys in the bushes?" So there were 2 on the trail, and Warner never saw the other. I'm pretty sure it was 8. It may have been 6 and 2 to make 8, or it may have been 2 and 8 in the
So
woods.
there was this puddle in the road, and there were tracks. There were no tracks leading into it.
Okay.
You're going to get into another one of these
Alex
scenarios.
is gonna read Warner Glenn's book.
It wasn't like that
Get
at
it
all.
right.
No, but that may have saved his life, just being so nonchalant and pragmatic about it.
And he just anywhere he goes, he just kind of set the room at ease.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, "You got some drugs there?" And they're like, "Yep." And I appreciated the response of the drug dealers. They were just like,
Yep.
Yep.
"Well, I mean, what are they going to say? This is coffee.
Stand up drug dealers.
Yeah.
Men of their words.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh man, you can read this book and learn more about it. But I love the mule part. Him talking about mules. I meant what I said too. Like if you hear me talking good about mules, that means very little. When you hear Warner Glenn talk about mules, he's not. I mean, it's funny. I meant it very much what I said when I joked about Instagram. It's like Warner Glenn is not trying to impress anybody. He just wants to stay alive, and he rides a mule. It was pretty cool hearing him talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really loves those animals and really
takes really good care of them.
good care of them also. Yeah.
What's so wild about being down there on the border? You drive like 10 or 15 miles of dirt roads to get to basically Warner's driveway, which goes into the ranch, which it's a huge ranch. Like he called himself a small-time Arizona cattle farmer. I don't know how big the ranch is, but we're talking tens of thousands of acres. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're talking about and they're small-time ranchers. And the whole time you're driving in there, you're driving east, and directly to the south is a huge metal wall, brand new. It was pretty wild. We took pictures over by the wall and looked it over. The wild thing is that there's creeks that creeks and rivers that have to flow from Arizona into Mexico. They just have floodgates that are open, welded open. And so when we were there, Kelly was just like, yeah, it's a great wall. They just come through the holes where the creeks go through. We were pulling into Warner Glenn's driveway, and we meet 3 Border Patrol trucks coming out. And Kelly's in front of us, and we're following her. I made mention of this. And Kelly gets out and talks to the Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol drive past us. And, they're driving past, you're kind of looking in there, what's going on. And anyway, they'd picked up 6 people, like within a half mile of their house that day, and they didn't think a thing about it. Like Kelly was just like, yeah. I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, it was just the Border Patrol. They just picked up some people over here. And it's just interesting. It's just part of life down there.
Right.
It just changes the dynamic of your life big time.
Sure.
And like I said, his neighbor was murdered.
Right.
That is crazy. But
Yeah.
that happened, and that's their life. And
Yeah.
For me in Arkansas, it's a headline, or it's a news article, or it's something people argue about
Right.
one way or the other, and that's their life.
You know what? Warner Glenn was classy enough. Warner Glenn and them, they have opinions about stuff just like anybody would. Warner never said a derogatory word about the situation. He never did.
About the immigration situation.
He the only things that he said to me was he was very concerned about it being a wildlife migration inhibitor, because they want lions and jaguars coming across that border, and they can't get across that. They can't get across that wall. And that was the one thing he opened up to me about. He said, yeah, we're worried about it as far as migrations of animals, because they're in this wilderness, truly. I mean, there's cattle, there's a few people, but I mean, pretty much a wilderness. And their life is revolved around hunting these lions and stuff, which
that doesn't.
I appreciated that, because you would have expected inside of a polarized world,
Right.
is people down there to be
One way or
embittered
another.
or this or that.
Exactly.
And actually, what I saw inside of him was some empathy for them as people.
That's right.
But at the same time, they'll turn people in when they see it. I mean, they're just they understand the law of the land, but they also, I felt like, had some empathy towards the human aspects of it.
I think that fits with the other things that we've learned about Warner Glenn, that he's like an iceberg, and I'm sure there's thoughts, I'm sure there's opinions, but it really does say a lot about a man who can just, you don't have to see all that.
Well,
You've got 9/10 that's covered, and you've got 1/10 that people can see. And I think it says a lot about a person's integrity to just kind of be who you are. And
I just thought it was very telling when asked about the wall, that his opinion of the wall was that there used to be an 8-strand barbed wire fence there with T-posts every 12 feet apart, and it was a good fence, but then, it was an old fence and it needed keeping up. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
there was no
like, you want to know what I
politics.
think about the wall? It's like, it's a pretty good fence back when it was 8-strand barbed wire. Oh man.
let's talk about the structural dynamics.
Well, and then he told me they put during the early 2000s they put up a vehicle barrier, which is like a big metal type fence that's low, like animals could go through it. And he said they would just build ramps and ramp over it. And then the new wall is like, it's 30 feet tall, 6x6 posts in deep concrete. The 6x6 posts probably are 4 to 5 to 6 inches apart.
Yeah.
They 4?
Yeah, like this.
Probably 4. So envision a 6x6 square tube that goes 30 foot straight up in the air, and then there's another one 4 inches.
Only the skinniest of lines can get through.
Yeah.
I think what hit me was, you said, whatever you look at, whatever the angle, there's only one Warner Glenn.
Yeah.
And I think, like, as even his daughter was talking, and he's getting older, and, and he said about that dog that's going to pass, maybe this will be our last winter together. I was doing the dishes, and usually I listen to your podcast when I'm doing the dishes, and like I immediately I got a little lump in my throat, and I thought, what am I? And I obviously don't know this man, but I think that's a rare man And when the world loses a man like that, it loses something of great value. And there's just not too many people who can be in and live in a very complex situation. We're talking about immigration. We're talking about conserving wildlife. We're talking about an intergenerational family and a business and his granddaughter and how to the sixth generation, how do they do that with her and do that well? And all these things, he's the same man and he does it well and everyone is blessed because of it. And when he passes, it will be a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, I think you hit it right on the head. Because I think that's what I know I felt. I'm pretty sure Clay did. It was like, he's like a gem that you don't want to lose. And that's just life. But, and the simplicity of his life, how he's able to maneuver himself, his family, inside a very complex world that would have most people chasing their tails and a lot of turmoil and that type of thing, chaos inside of the family. You don't feel that with that. There's been a foundation built in that family that while all this stuff is going on around them, they know who they are and they know what they're called to do on that ranch and how they're supposed to live. And it's given them a lot of stability.
Well, I look forward, to telling more of Kelly's story. I said it, we could have made a Bear Grease podcast just about Kelly. Yeah. For real. She's a neat lady. In a veteran dry ground lion hunt, we hadn't even talked about lion hunting. I mean, the whole aspect of being a dry ground lion hunter is pretty amazing, and that's what a lot of the next podcast is going to be about, because that is one of those things that unless you understand it, you have no context of why that is special. And so, if you value North American hunting, you need to know what dry ground lion hunting is. Super unique, super difficult. Pretty much got to dedicate your life to it to be good at it. And Warner Glen is known as, and we use this phrase, one of the best in the world. We're only dry ground lion hunting on this side of the planet for the most part. So you could say best in the country, best in the nation. It's kind of like the NFL being the world champions. And it's like, wait a minute. But
we didn't play anybody from Italy, did we?
I thought when Warner Glen said, that was one time when Kelly got hurt. Or he said something like that was one time when she got bit by a lion. And I was like, how many times?
Hey, did you like that segue? Did you think it was funny? When he said, now that was just one of the times she got hurt. I don't want to tell you about the other. And then I said, oh, sounds interesting. And then Kelly's like, did Dad tell you I got bit by a lion? Well, what she didn't tell us too, and I don't know that I'm going to include it just because, it's just a long story. She got straight up just dang near killed on a mule 2 years ago. She doesn't even remember what happened. She just was like, I was riding the mule and next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. She literally doesn't know what happened.
There's so many contradictions.
They were basically catching these rank cattle. They turn these cattle loose on these big open sections and they have leases, some on public land and some on their land. And they were rounding up cattle and roping and running through brush. And basically she got raked off a mule, went over backwards and just blacked out. And I can't remember how they got her out of there and the specifics of the injury, but she's had some pretty major stuff happen over the years. But
you and him both are so contradictory about how safe these mules are.
I know.
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
Every broken bone in our kids' lives,
thank you,
with the exception of one this summer that just happened, has been off a mule.
Well, and that really, yeah. Somebody could say, "Hey, Clay, you say mules are safer," because Warner says mules are safe, and the next thing Kelly's getting tore up by a mule. An equine animal is inherently dangerous, no matter if it's a horse or a mule.
True.
So these things could, the spooking of a mule will spook, a mule will fall over, a mule will hurt you, a mule will kick you, a mule will do everything a horse would do to you, maybe worse, but they're typically safer.
But they make great pets.
Just digging a hole. Just dig the hole.
And this is where we always end in our family. But, cars are also dangerous.
Yeah. That's our argument. Cars are dangerous.
Cars are dangerous too.
Most dangerous thing you did today was drive here.
Yeah.
Get on a mule is no problem. No, hey, thank you all. Mike, it's been great to have you.
Yeah, it's been great to be here. Thanks.
Yep. Isaac, good to have you. Brent, good to have you. Misty,
Boy, you better
Dan.
call us all out now. Even six finger over here.
Yeah, boy, you're welcome.
Daniel, quietly moving on. Got new crops.
It's our first time to not have a song.
It's not the first time that I have a song.
Might be, but I think there might be a really good song next week.
I think the first couple you didn't have a song on the first couple renders,
Yeah.
did you?
Yeah.
Maybe, okay.
I don't remember.
Since there's been songs.
Since the songs have
Since
begun
songs,
to be sung.
Since songs have been sung.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Maui Nui is on a mission to help balance axis deer populations for the good of our environment, communities, and food systems on the island of Maui. They've shared over 126,000 pounds of nutrient-dense protein with the Maui community. Secure your spot now. Become a snack subscriber and join in helping to build more resilient food and ecosystems on Maui. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI venison.com and use promo code BEAR for 20% off your first order.